Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Let's get settled in here, and we'll call this meeting of the Sacramento Regional Transit District to order. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Director Budge. Director Hanson.
Here.
Director Harris.
Here.
Director Hume.
Here.
Director Jennings.
Here.
Director Slowey is here for Director Miller. Director Morin.
Here.
Director Natoli.
Here.
Director Chenier. Director Cerna.
Here.
Chair Kennedy is absent this evening. With that, we have a quorum at 100 votes. This meeting of the Sacramento Regional Transit District will be cablecast without interruption on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel. Tonight's meeting will air on Wednesday, July 25th at 6 p.m. and replayed on Tuesday, July 31st at noon, and webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. It is also closed caption. Members of the audience wishing to address the board should fill out a speaker card located at the rear of the room and provide it to me or Adam. Please speak into the microphone and state your name for the record. We would appreciate everyone turning off their cell phones. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Barrasso, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, thank you, everyone. First, we have matters not on the agenda for public comment.
We do. You have several cards
Yep.
in front of
So
you.
our first speaker is Sarah Michael. I believe she requires a cordless.
Is this 2 minutes like at the council meetings?
3 minutes, ma'am.
Ooh, big time, thank you.
Enjoy.
Okay, I have been in this valley for 26 years. I've enjoyed most everything about it, but we do need accountability with ERT bus drivers and train conductors. I once suggested that they have what LA does with theirs, and that is a shoulder patch with an employee number, which when we have a problem, it does away with the what's the bus train number times, all of that. You folks are missing a lot of information because people are disgusted and then they have to fill out all this information. What does the person look like? And I was told that can't happen because the union won't allow it. Find a way, make it happen. These are employees and they are abusing us. And the year that the signs were put up in the trains and buses alerting all of us that should we be hostile toward one of them, it is a federal crime. The hostility level did not go up or down with the riders, but the bullying by the employees to the riders spiked enormously. Now, when it was more affordable, I used to buy a monthly pass and enjoy being out and about. I can't do that anymore. But for many years, I was out there every day just doing what I could to try to bring some pleasure to the lives of people that I meet along the way. I don't like being bullied, and one thing I'd like to bring to everybody's attention is I am sitting here in a regular wheelchair. This is a cat carrier that is on the footplate. Now, you can call this a wheelchair, but the actual legal definition is a mobility device. It is to be used in the way that I see fit for my needs, not to be determined by the ignorant belief of an RT employee who is not disabled. Now, I used this cat carrier when I was moving things from storage, and I had it just as you see it. Today, I'm using it for my leg because I'm losing the use of it. Train pulls up, and I always look to see if it's one of my favorite drivers. This was a woman. I never knew her, so we had no past history. She came out of the train onto the platform, literally up in my face, and told me that if the train had been busy, she would refuse me entrance. I had no idea why. So I asked. And she said, well, this is too big. I said, so you're telling me that this, which does not exceed the dimensions of a scooter, that if you were busy, you would leave a scooter-disabled person on the platform? She pressed her lips tight, turned around, let me on. There's one man that those of us who ride the train know just by description, where I go, oh God, yeah, I know him. I've had issue with him. He saw me at the 16th Street Light Rail Station, and he pulled the train up so that the ramp was blocked by the large steel girder. He would not move it. I had to remove a side bag.
Miss Michael, your time
Yes,
is up.
time
Do
is
you have
up.
your final comment?
But the bullying and the aggression and the abuse has got to stop, and accountability needs to start.
Thank you for your
Thank
comments,
you.
ma'am. Our next speaker is Helen O'Connell. After Helen is Madeline Corin, and then Mike Barnbaum. Helen?
Hello. Some people have the lifetime pass for 80 and over. And my mom's 82 and we can't get her one. Yet I know someone that received one within the last 3 months. So I'm confused. I would really like to know what the rules are, who you got to talk to, how you get it. And if it is not available, why did someone get one? Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. I'll ask Mark Lonergan from our staff to follow up with you. Madeline Corin? Madeline, maybe?
I'm Madeline Corin. I came here to document what happened to me June 22nd because 20 years of written complaints have been blown off for reasons only you know of. Moreover, the abuses have been increased in number and intensity, which suggests that there is collusion among RT drivers and administration alike. This abuse and retaliatory behavior could only exist this long when RT employees believe they are protected under the laws, or for lack of a better word, 20 years of fascist leadership. I am 73 years old, disabled with multiple life-threatening health conditions, but have been without a caregiver now from IHSS for almost a year. Being underserved by Sacramento Human Services has created many physical problems, emotional and physical. It's put my health and safety in jeopardy. June 22nd is a case in point. Recently, I had breast cancer surgery for the second time. On the 22nd of June, I was at the Cancer Center on C Street for radiation. While there, I broke my ankle. After radiation, I drove my wheelchair down 15 broken down sidewalks to Mercy Urgent Care on Q Street for my broken ankle in 104-degree heat. I had nothing to eat since 8 a.m. that morning. After 5 hours at Mercy Urgent Care, I boarded the light rail to go home. All the grief, pain, and suffering I'd sustained at the hands of public employees in general seemed to come to a head that day on the train. I let go and began having an emotional breakdown. In the style of many RT drivers over the past 20 years, the driver became threatening and aggressive. The blonde driver with her badass tattoos up and down her arm threw open the door, rushed toward me with her finger in an intimidating manner. She told me to shut up, that I had no rights, that ADA could do nothing to help me, that this was a private company, that she was taking away my travel rights. The driver said she was throwing me off the bus. When I refused, the driver then stopped the bus to create a mob mentality among those who wanted to get home, so that many of them began issuing threats to my life. Because of my strong convictions of my constitutional rights and years of abuse by RT drivers, I refused to get off the train. I tried to help the driver understand my problem and gave her a chance to de-escalate the situation. I tried explaining that my power wheelchair was running so low I was afraid to get stranded in the street with no cell phone and no one to call for help. I was also afraid of a stroke from driving in the heat for 15 blocks and now feeling dizzy. I also told her I was only 2 stops away from home. The driver said she didn't want to hear anything I had to say and sat outside with the cop or guard to kibitz.
Your time is up.
I'm almost one more paragraph.
No,
This is the crux
ma'am,
of the matter.
ma'am.
Soon 5 policemen arrived and beat me up because I would not leave the train. I tried to explain the same thing to them, but it was clear the police serve a fascist agenda.
Corin.
They would not they would not have ignored the fact that I was sick and elderly. Along with 5 policemen, your guard or cop hit me in the back of my head, sending my hat flying. When I defended myself to push her away from me, she accused me of assaulting an officer. Now I'm finished. That's what's going on with this abuse.
I'll remind everybody of the rules. Everybody's entitled to 3 minutes. We appreciate your comments. Ms. Corn, I'll have our staff follow up with you. But when the chair, whoever that is, asks, ma'am, it's up to the next person to speak now. Ma'am, your time is up. Thank you. Mike Barnbaum? Ma'am, if you can't follow the rules, please leave. Please leave the chamber if you can't follow the rules. Mr. Barnbaum, you're up. Mr. Barnbaum, you're up.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. Just want to provide, since the board hasn't had a meeting in a few weeks, there's been some news and developments going on. Want to make sure everyone watching at home and in the audience is apprised on Channel 14 as well. Back on July 1st, you should have a brochure now in front of you at your dais. The new Solano Express service started, and it started providing a layover at the Sacramento Valley station. They still provide the same route alignment within downtown Sacramento. They serve downtown weekdays, and they travel up to but no further than Davis on Saturday. There is currently no service on Sunday. The changes were made on July 1st to address some reliability in their system. And on the Sacramento route, now people can get on and go out as far as the Pleasant Hill, Contra Costa BART station, and not only the downtown Fairfield Transportation Center. That's not the endpoint. They mentioned at their meeting on July 11th before the Solano Transportation Authority, thanks to the fact that Regional Measure 3 passed in the June election over the course of 9 counties at an overall percentage of 55% to 45%. They will be allocated additional service hours, which will allow them to go from their current 77,000 service hours for the current fiscal year to next July 1st, they will be given 110,000 service hours. So they are now in the planning stages to make some modifications to service and improvements that they just implemented July 1st of this fiscal year. The other news is, in case people have missed it, another bus service has started in Sacramento. I'm sure for many years you've heard of the Greyhound bus, and in recent years you've heard of the Mega Bus. Now Sacramento has joined the route network of Flixbus. Flixbus is headquartered in Munich, Germany. Their second headquarters is in Los Angeles, California, where they started routes to Nevada and Arizona on May 31st, and they just expanded to Northern California and Northern Nevada last Thursday. They have an app and a website you can check out on your mobile device at any time you wish. Thank you. That's in the update.
Thank you, Mr. Barnbaum. Next up is Jeffrey Tartagia, and then our final speaker will be Brenda Anderson. Mr. Tartagia.
Hi, guys. Sorry, you're having a lovely Patrick Kennedy day. For tomorrow, ECOS. Great. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to hearing about the district. 21st and J Street, bus stop 30, needs to be checked very soon. It's your new bike path, but it blocks. The same thing needs to be looked at as far as this access for the Route 30, because the same thing going down further, you do not have room to pull out of the bus stop. That's a new thing happening going there. Several years ago, Jeff, you made comebacks in 2016 related to where RT was at. I ask you guys, look again. This is 2018. And Henry, you've done a good job of working things going there, but at the same time, like everything else, I do expect way more. But the rest of it is, I will say to you guys, is, people want to be distracted and everything else, but I will tell you, please proceed forward, getting the new things done. I'm glad to hear, and unfortunately, since Patrick isn't here, he was supposed to be getting me with your Mr. Should we say Walker, because I really do want to know what the other tools then, route optimization and increased ridership and or content, because I think Mr. Walker has other tools in his, should we say, package, and I think right now, beyond customer service, which I know you're percolating on, and I know you're proposing new changes for Route 15, but there are other routes also need to be examined. And I'm looking forward to Saturdays, should we say route optimization at Sac True at 1 o'clock. And I almost really want to have your new employee and whatever your change of employees that have been occurring and people that left as of, should we say, July 1st and other changes that have happened. I'm hoping that I will find that in your general manager's report thoroughly. And with the last few seconds to say, guys, I really think you need to know more what's going on, and with once-a-month meetings, I think you're not getting it. I will be at the STA taxpayers piece about dealing with the optimization and the review of the grant programs, because I think that needs to be reviewed, and I haven't seen you do with your pilot programs, reviewing properly before you jump ahead with the impact of things.
Thank you, Mr. Tartagia. Our last speaker is Brenda Anderson. Ms. Anderson, do you need the microphone? It's coming.
Thank you. This is a fond farewell. When I first came here, I gave the board a compliment, and I took it back in the same meeting. You partially have that compliment back. There has been some progress. Obviously, these people hold you guys to a higher standard than you assume. So keep that in your mind when you come forward and they have these complaints that they're looking for something that's not there. You cannot have a magic wand. You don't have the answers for them. You have a system that you can only apply to alleviate something, and they don't understand that like you do. So try to figure out a way to tell them you hear them and that you care. Even if you can't resolve it, we got to have a little more humanity coming out of you. What looks good, tastes good, smells good, it's not always good for you. So the staff is going to bring you some resolutions that seems okay, but sit up, pay attention, ask questions. I catch them all the time, and if I catch them, you should too. It's important that we have these things addressed. Look at them very, very closely. Why? I used to do, when I got the resolutions, I say, how many options do they have for each resolution? And if I have more than 2 or 3 options, then what are the consequences of each one of those options? You can take this thing all the way to different levels. So keep those things in mind as a word of advice to send with you. I appreciate you. I applaud you. I thank you for being who you are and what you do. You are important to these people to move about the city. And that's more than anything else in the world to do. So give yourself that pat on the back that I took away and gave back to you. But it's also keep going forward, but do not let anybody off the hook for what they have not considered you need to have from them. Always, always, always ask for the best and take nothing less. It's important. I want you to know that Broadway is a very, very strong element in the thoroughfare of Sacramento. And having traveled that thoroughfare for some time, I think is something that you might want to look into. I'm going to end it here. It's been great. I thank you for letting me be a part of your organization, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, Ms. Anderson. Thank you for always being a strong and passionate writer, and you look very good in that regional transit hat. So I hope you bring it to the East Coast with you and talk all about the things you learned here and helped do here.
Mr. Chair, Brenda, if you don't mind sharing with us, obviously Chair Hansen knows you're going to the East Coast, but if you don't mind sharing, since we're now losing you to some other community, tell us where it is that you're going, if you would.
Where are you going?
Where
You tell us where you're going.
Charlotte, North Carolina.
Oh, all right. You taking a bus? No RT bus goes that far, huh?
The plane leaves at 10 p.m. July 31st. We'll come in the air and come back down.
Very good. Well, best of luck to
we
you.
wish you all the best.
Charlotte's a wonderful place. We wish you well.
Thank you very much, and I've learned a lot here.
Thank you.
With no further comments, Madam Clerk, the consent calendar.
Consent calendar items 1 through 10, noting that you have a speaker on items 2 and 7.
Yes. Do any directors wish to pull any items from consent? Doesn't look like it. All right. Mr. Barnbaum on item number 2, and then after him, Jeffrey Tardigia on item 7.
Item number 2, resolution authorizing the general manager CEO to execute agreements with the California Department of Transportation for Sacramento Regional Transit District's high-capacity bus corridor study for the Capital Region.
Thank you. High-capacity bus corridor is going to be very important for the Sacramento region going forward. Many regions of this size, if not larger, have high-capacity bus corridors. One which I recall from years ago from former director of RT and now director of Transportation California, Roger Dickinson, always reminds us of the San Pablo Avenue corridor in the East Bay, having a high capacity bus service. It's a long corridor with a lot of skip stops, plus it has a local route complementing it whenever possible. Wanted to identify prior to the report, though, some corridors of very significant regional importance that this type of service in the Sacramento region could be quite useful, including but not limited to Folsom Boulevard from downtown Sacramento through Folsom and up to the city of Auburn. As you know, most of the corridor has the Gold Line today, but as we all see in our RT alerts, if the Gold Line is ever down, emergency bus bridges have to come into play. One of the things that would help if Folsom Boulevard had such a service is that the service would be high capacity and frequent enough, and it would be considered regular service, that the need for emergency bus bridges would be less and less needed with additional regular service on Folsom Boulevard. But that's not all. The Elk Grove Florin Road, South Watt Avenue, and Santucci Boulevard corridor from Elk Grove's eastern city limits to Roseville's western city limits on a north and south corridor would be a very big candidate to get such a high capacity bus service, as possibly would the Elkhorn Greenback corridor in northern Sacramento County between the historic Folsom Station clear across west to southbound Highway 99, northbound Interstate 5, and Airport Boulevard to Sacramento International Airport. The airport itself has been in the Sacramento Bee articles recently as The YOLO bus is the only bus service today to the airport, and a high-capacity bus corridor serving the airport but having a long-distance component to it with stops distanced apart would perhaps fill the need to have additional airport service from other areas.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Barnbaum. Mr. Tardigia, you're up next on item number 7.
Item number 7, resolution delegating authority to the general manager, CEO, to release a request for proposals and award a contract for the use of a microtransit scheduling application.
My concern is you're still in your first pilot project. You're about to start your Franklin for your second one, and you're already implying with a microtransit scheduling that you intend to do more. That's why I am going to see what the, should we say, grants, how they are assessed for the future, because it seems to me this is premature, and that you should be at least come back with not the success, but what are the problems, which clearly this is telling you you do have a problem, and that you need a better scheduling program than what you currently have. That is my concern. You seem to do this repeatedly before you complete pilot projects.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Would the general manager, Mr. Lonergan, like to address that concern? Sure. Mark Lonergan, welcome.
Thank you. So what we're doing here on this item tonight is actually obtaining a permanent scheduling app. The app we have under a demonstration agreement that runs out. The demonstration agreement will get us through, well, our Citrus Heights, Orangevale, Antelope implementation, our Franklin Boulevard, Meadowview implementation, and our downtown East Sacramento implementations. But at that point, we need a permanent app. We've run out of time on our demonstration to continue with the other implementations we have through the STA funding. And so there's nothing wrong with the app we have. Actually, the vendor is very good. We expect they'll be very competitive, and we wish them all the luck, but we do need to have a permanent app in place. So what we're looking at is permanent being about 3 years. This is a technology issue for us, and we'll see where we are in 3 years and what we'll need to do app-wise after that. But that's the intent here.
Thank you, Mr. Lonergan. Barring any other comments, do we have a motion on the consent calendar? We have a motion from Director Harris, a second from Director Budge. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries.
At 100 votes. Next item is the general manager's report, item number 11.
Good evening, Chair Hansen, members of the board, and the public. First, I would like to recognize one of our most outspoken but loved advocates, Ms. Brenda Anderson. She will leave us at the end of this month to North Carolina. And Brenda has become a familiar face here at the chamber and pushing us to do more and better. So thank you, Brent, for being a great advocate, and we wish you the best luck in the beautiful state of North Carolina. Thank you. Now I would like to share the progress of the expanded Folsom evening service starting from June 17th on light rail to the Folsom stations. The expanded service is already linking people to resources, opportunities, and events. To help promote the later hour service on the Gold Line, SACRT offered free light rail rides to the historical Folsom hometown service, hometown parade on Saturday, June 30th, and free rides to the Folsom Pro Rodeo. We're excited to offer this service and to increase the transit options to the community. I hope that everyone will take advantage of this new service. A lot update is regarding our zero-emission vehicles. In June, Electrify America Inc., or EA, announced that they will be investing in SACRT as part of the $44 million investment to make Sacramento a green city. But they're not going to give us $44 million. They just give us part of that. What they're going to do is they will purchase 12 electric buses that will operate from the UC Davis main campus to the UC Davis Medical Center in Sacramento. The express route will operate at 15 minutes headways and will include stops in West Sacramento and downtown Sacramento. Furthermore, EA will also fund zero-emission small shuttle buses that will operate as a part of SACRT's Smart Ride service. These zero-emission small buses will serve our Franklin Smart Ride service, which will launch next week on June 30th. We're now finalizing the terms and conditions with EA and beginning to contact vendors regarding procuring vehicles. We're looking forward to have the first round zero-emission buses to join our fleet in the near future. In the meantime, we're going to purchase 6 small shuttle buses by ourselves for the microtransit projects. We actually, the small buses are actually supposed to be in the United States, but we were told they were in China, in the port because of the trade war. They could not get to us time enough. So that's 6, additional vehicles we're going to get. In the meantime, Director Sarah, Hansen, Chenier, and others, and Congresswoman Matsui, SECAC, SACRT, and other stakeholders have been working very diligently to potentially purchase another 10 zero-emission big buses to implement an express bus route between downtown Sacramento and the Sacramento International Airport. We're working with Air Quality District very closely too to see if they can chip in some money. So the odds to get that 10 additional electric buses is very good. We hope to report back with some great progress later. With all this lumped together, we might be able to get up to 40 zero-emission small or bigger buses, in the near future, which will be a big, great example or model for the whole state because we're in the capital region. Next, I would like to provide a brief update on some technology updates we have implemented that will make our system easier, more convenient, and safer. We recently completed installation of light rail vehicle mobile routes, which are a key communication device that enables live video streaming of onboard cameras and GPS location of the vehicles. This will, in turn, lead to real-time train location and real-time arrival information for our customers in the near future. Also, we have now completed a 2-year effort to engineer and install public address or PA system at all of our light rail stations. The PA has done tremendous job in increasing security with national recognition. Every day we have multiple examples. PA has helped to increase the security. FY18 compared to FY17, our crime rate reduced by 26.7%. So this really helped a lot. Lastly, I would like to share some exciting pictures. SACRT will be participate in Sacramento's Wide Open Walls Festival. You can say, in this slide, the front of our customer service center is kind of like a concrete wall, and we're going to undergo a transformation from this concrete wall to colorful depiction of the birds the picture, that looks like very nice. And I hope you guys will take light rail to our customer service center on R Street and watch this beautiful mural get painted. This concludes my report. I would love to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Doesn't look like it. Should we do the financial update?
We
Yes.
shall. Brent
Or-
Bernicker.
Oh, Brent, yeah.
All right. Thank you, Director Hansen. Didn't want to forget that, right? These are exciting year-end numbers. So,
It's definitely hot in here.
all right. So we have preliminary numbers for the fiscal year 2018, and these numbers are based on what we call the soft close. We still have some invoices that trickle in through the month, and we'll be posting those. And then we also have the actuarial results that come in at the end of July that we backdate to June. So with that being said, this is a soft close number, but the surplus at the end of the year, I'm going to actually focus on the column to the right, and that's the year-end numbers. And so you'll see a surplus of about 5.4 million. That's at the bottom of this page right there. Our revenues came in about 164.5 million, and expenses were about 159.4 million. And so if you think of this from our operating surplus that we had from the prior year, that was about 5.3 million. So add this together with the 5.4, we're looking at a surplus of about 10.7 million for operating. And this is by far the largest surplus I've seen since I've been here, so this is great news for us, and we should be really happy about that. So some other good news, what's not reflected in these numbers is we also had some additional federal apportionment revenue for fiscal year 18. It's looking like that number could be about $1.5 to $2.5 million of additional federal revenues. We have to have eligible operating preventative maintenance to claim against that revenue. So we're looking to do that right now. So that's some other good news. However, we also have a feeling that there could be some additional claim costs that will offset that. But that being said, this number is a good soft number at this point in time. So, oops, I'm going to go back actually one. Oh, thanks. It's to you guys, all the effort. Your direction. I'm going to actually go back one slide. So I do want to actually talk about some of the variances. If you start with the large variances, you have fair revenues coming in under budget by $1 million. And why we're shy on that, and we've been talking about that month after month, is these customers are shifting to the electronic forms of media. The next slide I show you will show you how what makes up that big difference. The next one I want to talk about is the other income category. We're over budget by about $1 million, and that's because we've had a stellar market for when we sell our LCFS credits and our RINs. The next row right here that I want to focus on is state and local. You'll see that we're $2.2 million of budget, and that's because the actual sales tax receipts came in much higher than what was budgeted. The next line item that was significant was salary and fringes. We're about $1 million positive in that category, and that's because we've had a really good cost control plan in place, and we've been able to charge to our capital projects as projected. The next line item is services, and what you see there is about a $2 million below budget savings, and that was due to less spending on outside consulting and security services throughout the year. The one area that we had that was above budget is the insurance liability. And so you'll see that's a negative variance of about close to $2 million. And if you recall, during this year, we had 2 large claims, significant claims that occurred that we had to settle for an amount that was much greater than we originally estimated. And I think these claims date back to maybe 2013 or 14, but we now are in the settlement process. So that's going to take a big hit. And then down below at the last row is the other expenses, and you'll see about a $1.2 million savings. That was a combination of less spending on Connect Card activities, as well as not having to utilize the full estimated operating contingency line item that we had estimated. So I'm going to switch over to the next slide, and this is the deferred revenue. balance sheet item that we talk about month after month. And what you can see is at the beginning of the year, the deferred balance was 119,000 approximately. We're all the way up to 672,000. So what that means is there's $672,000 sitting in a bank waiting to be earned. These are people that have bought monthly passes in the future, or they've actually had stored value on their Connect card that we're just sitting there waiting for it to be earned. And typically in the years past, we would recognize that revenue at the time of sale. So if you kind of think about that variance of about $1 million that we had on our fare revenues, if we were able to record this, we would have been a lot closer on that variance. The next slide is our fare box recovery slide, and you'll see we're compliant with the TDA requirement of 23%. This year we had to supplement a little bit higher than last year. Last year we had to supplement with Measure A about 2.1%. This year that percentage is about 4.5%. Again, it's pretty small, but if you recall back, some of the things that we've done is we've done a lot more pilot programs for offering student discounts and kind of incentives, and our fare revenues are a little bit lower than we would have liked. So that's what's going to affect this calculation. Then this last slide is our ridership comparison. We have 3 charts here. If you look at the first chart, you'll see that's the June budget to actual. You can see that we're 3% above our target for June, which is great. And if you look at it from a year-to-date perspective, we're within 1% of our actual forecast. So we estimated that ridership would be around 21 million, and it came in about 21.8 million. When you compare us year over year, so fiscal year 18 to fiscal year 17, we're down about 6.8%. When you look at some of the things that what really makes up that number, you'll see that the commuter travel is still really steady. We're still happy with the commuter travel. It's the off-peak that's still continuing to decline. So again, we're going to still focus on ridership, and we're going to make some concerted efforts to really find ways to focus on that area and look at some options. Probably in the next 2 board meetings, we'll come up with some more strategies to improve that. That concludes my final financial presentation. If there's any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board? I don't see any. Thank you
Okay,
so much,
thanks.
Brent. Keep up the great work.
All right.
Okay, moving on. Item number 12, resolution approving the renaming of the Glen Light Rail Station to the Glen Robert Holderness Light Rail Station. And Director Morin is going to present this item.
All right. Thank you, Cindy. This is a privilege for me today to introduce this item. And just to give a little bit of background to my colleagues here on the board. So Robert G. Holderness served Folsom as city council member and mayor back in the 1990s. And he had some innovative ways as far as leading some very large transportation projects in the city of Folsom that not only benefited Folsom but the region. And one of those was bringing light rail to the city of Folsom, which began, I believe it was 2005 when that service initiated. So a group of our Folsom Chamber of Commerce leadership approached us on the council about trying to come up with something to recognize these accomplishments, and led by Bob Holderness. So at our June 12th City Council meeting, and we were certainly working in concert with the regional transit staff to make sure that there was no past history with Robert Holderness and regional transit, which there was not. But we passed unanimously, moving this forward to the Regional Transit Board. And if you've seen any of our city council meetings recently, unanimous votes are a little rare these days. So I thought that was significant. But we did surprise Bob on that evening. We managed to get him in there and covertly put together an agenda item that we kind of built as we went. So with that, again, it was an honor for me to kind of carry this forward to the board here. And I guess the last thing I'll do is our general manager of the Folsom Chamber of Commerce is here, Joe Gagliardi. And Joe, would you like to just say a few words on behalf of both Bob and what he's meant to the community? And just before Joe gets started there, I mentioned Bob serving on the city council and as mayor in the 1990s, and he has continued to be very involved in Folsom and the region. So Bob, I thank you for that as well, for just always being involved there. So, Joe?
Well, thank you, Andy. I don't think we could say enough about what Bob's done for transportation, not only in the city of Folsom, but regionally. Those of you that sat on boards at the time when he, if you're old enough to remember, back in the ages when Bob was on the city council and was the mayor, he really is the father of transportation in our community, and one of the reasons that we're so well connected throughout the region. So it's really a pleasure, and I hope you put enough votes together, Andy, here that they'll approve this, but
it's taking a lot of work. It's going to have to be a roll call, I think.
Anyway, we're really excited to hear that the renaming of the station. So
great, thanks, Joe. So with that, I am pleased and honored to move this item.
Second.
I heard Linda Budge next. Are there any comments from directors? Yeah. Director Harris.
So some of you may know, I know some of you up here on the dais do know that Bob continues to serve on STA, and he's volunteered to serve on the ITALC committee, for which we're very grateful. So he's still got his hand in and continues to serve the community very well and nobly, and I'd be pleased to support this.
Awesome. Director Hume.
Yeah, I'd just like to comment. It's sometimes a bit of a sticky widget naming institutions and places and things after living individuals because they still have an opportunity to discredit themselves. But in this case, I think that Bob has earned this privilege. He has shown tremendous character, and I'm confident that he will live out his remaining years in the same manner of character he's had to this point.
We will hold off on naming the Patrick Hume Light Rail Station.
Yeah, better wait till I'm cold in the ground for that.
Congratulations, Bob. We're going to do a little photo here, but first let's take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, unanimous vote today.
Motion carries at 100 votes.
All right. Do you want to come up and?
Yes.
Andy. And then, Bob, after the photo, we'll have you speak.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman Hanson and members. Thank you very much for this great honor. It's truly humbling to have something like this. And of course, as Board Member Hume has pointed out, I have to really live up to that. So no more dirty tricks in Folsom. I wish you had the time that I could give you a few stories, vignettes about Mayor Cerna and Mayor Dick Marriott going back to when I first came to town, and of course Don's old boss, Toby Johnson, but you don't have the time. But all I can tell you is, I've enjoyed not only representing Folsom, but working in this region going way back to the 1970s when I was the president of the Capital City Democratic Club, which had meetings in the state capitol once a month. And I'm probably the only Democrat in Folsom. But they liked me, and Vic, when back in the 80s, Vic Fazio used to represent Folsom in the Congress, and we held fundraisers for him at our house, and one year he said, Bob, I don't think I'm going to be representing Folsom after the reapportionment. I said, well, why is that, Vic? He said, well, don't you ever look at the election results? I said, well, what do you mean? He says, well, every election I get fewer and fewer votes in Folsom than from the time before. I got to get out of your town. So he did, and we eventually had John Doolittle. And actually, Vic made me get along with John Doolittle. He told me, Bob, John Doolittle is your congressman. Live with it. And he was right. And John helped us with light rail. That's why I mentioned that. Rob Kurth, who was vice chair of your board at one time, was originally sort of in tension with me about bringing light rail to Folsom, but we worked it out and he became a big supporter. So I appreciate all of you. I appreciate the colleagues on the Folsom City Council, both past and present. And Councilmember Harris, thank you for the mention of the ITOC. That's a new assignment for me, a very interesting one. I'm learning how to deal with financial people, which I never had good luck with them. So,
congratulations.
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
And Donna, let us know if his head gets too big to fit in the door. We'll help with that. Yeah. Mr. Tartagia, I'm sorry, we forgot to call you for item 11 for public comment.
Well, Board, mine was the reminder is you have the Mobile Accessibility Committee. And you may not realize it, but those megaphones for the system came out of the Mobile Accessibility Committee wanting to have a means for communicating verbally. You guys determined that there was a better use for law enforcement with it, and we're still working on, Roger and the other, to come up with a better tool for dealing with communication with the electronic bulletin board system. I still am hearing some reports dealing with I-80 and the elevator. I do look forward when that, we'll call it the north elevator, is, should we say, demolished. I'm hoping that out of the sooner the route optimization can possibly move, shall we say, your bus structure down closer to the street, and that you see that your drivers know. And so I'm looking forward to your Doug Cook, who, for transportation, I believe is the name I'm looking for. And I am disappointed for the general manager's report that we didn't hear what changes have gone on staff level wise. I see Olga over there, so note that some changes have taken place with staff. I know that to the MAC committee, I made the comment of losing, should we say, Mr. Solomon, because he had been an ADA supporter for a long time, and that the history of ADA, which is going to be at the West Steps this Thursday, commemorating 28 years, that a lot of your history, just like other knowledge, needs to be reviewed and refreshed. And that's why I reminded you guys about where this board was in 2016 through there and where you are now, and seeing whether you are indeed finding the things that need to be, but it's always important. If you don't look back, going ahead forward, you do not realize the consequences. And as I reported on the AB 709, there are unintentional consequences, and you need to understand. And that I did speak to Senator Beal about dealing with the bills. And that was an interesting thing to see you there, Steve, rather than, shall we say, the, lawyer for, shall we say, explaining what's going on with that technically wise.
Thank you, Mr. Tartagia. Sorry about that again. Our next item, Madam Clerk.
Item number 13, there are two resolutions before you. A, resolution adopting a mitigated negative declaration for the downtown Riverfront streetcar project, and B, resolution approving the downtown Riverfront streetcar governance documents consisting of the subrecipient and interagency agreement, the design, procurement, and construction agreement, and the operations and maintenance agreement presented by Mark Lonergan.
Good evening, Vice Chair Hansen and members of the board. The item before you is the approval of the governance documents for the Riverfront streetcar project and the adoption of the mitigated negative declaration for the project as well. The specific governance documents before the board for approval are actually the ones that our clerk to the board just read, so I won't go through those again. These three agreements were brought before the board as an informational item at the June 11th meeting. At that time, the board had a number of questions, all of which are included in this issue paper along with staff's response. In addition, Melissa Noble from SAC-RT's legal department has prepared an assessment of the risks to SAC-RT associated with this approach to governing the streetcar project and how these agreements attempt to mitigate these risks. Also attached is the environmental assessment, initial study, and proposed mitigated negative declaration for the project prepared by SACOG and approved by them in August of 2015. The first question raised by the board back on June 11th had to do with the FTA's risk assessment. In late June, the FTA conducted their risk assessment of the project. The FTA identified 11 risks grouped under 4 major concerns. These included governance, utilities coordination, settling in on the site for the vehicle maintenance facility, and market conditions and how they affect the pricing of the project. Project staff is committed to provide the FTA updated information related to the project and identified risks by mid-August, after which the FTA would issue a final risk assessment report. What we learned during the risk assessment is their normal 4 to 8 week period has become kind of an indeterminate time frame. The FTA staff informed us that risk assessment reports are going through an extended review prior to release, which is causing a delay. So we're a bit unsure as to when we'll receive that final report. However, FTA staff encouraged the project staff to continue advancing the project and advised us that being as close to shovel-ready as possible in advance of a small starts agreement was our best path to success. Specific to governance, the FTA did not express any concern during the risk assessment over the content of the governance agreements, but they did let us know that the approval of the agreements was a risk that they were monitoring. So tonight's action by the SAC-RT board is a step toward mitigating the risk associated with the governance from the FTA's perspective. The governance agreements have been approved by the City of West Sacramento and the JPA. The City of Sacramento is scheduled to consider them at their council meeting tomorrow. Several board members raised concern over the operations and maintenance agreement, specifically SAC-RT's financial risk in entering into this agreement. It is clear in the O&M agreement that SAC-RT has no financial responsibility in the operation and maintenance of the streetcar system. That all rests with the JPA. This agreement requires the parties to agree on a methodology for developing an annual operating budget, so between RT and the JPA, for the payment of services at least 36 months prior to the start of revenue service, with a more detailed annual budget agreed to at least 24 months prior to the start of service. With revenue service currently scheduled for April of 2022, we're about 9 months away from really digging into getting into the operating costs and methodology for the project. Staff will bring both the budget methodology and proposed budget to the board for approval prior to reaching an agreement with the JPA. So we're still a ways away on this issue. The board also questioned SAC-RT's satisfaction with the level of risk and decision-making related to governance. In response, SAC-RT's legal department, prepared by Ms. Noble, did a risk assessment associated with this approach to government. It's attached to the issue paper and specific to these agreements. Ms. Noble's here with me tonight to answer questions that the board may have concerning her review of these agreements and our view of risk overall. So this concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to respond to questions.
Thank you, Mr. Lonergan. Director Natola, do you mind going after public comment with one speaker?
That's fine. Sure.
Right. Mr. Barassa, you're up.
Hello, I'm Stephen Barassa. I'm a board member of ION Sacramento and the chair for the Transportation Committee. It seems that UC Davis has beat us to the punch and is providing state-of-the-art electric buses running 15-minute frequency to provide that service to West Sacramento and UC Davis. So we don't need to do the streetcar now. But otherwise, I know you want to move forward with this. There's some concerns. This is a project that, you're on the hook for 50 years to operate. This has to be operated. And I think it's you have fiduciary duty to wait until the FTA concludes their risk assessment. This may take several months, but I think it's worthwhile to see that finalized and where the public has an opportunity to review that risk assessment as well. Furthermore, what really causes me concern is the revenue estimates for question number 5. They just don't seem to match reality. First of all, local revenue source B, Sacramento, of course, the measure S is tied up in litigation and it may not succeed, and that's 2.3 million. But another concern is the fare box revenue estimate, 700,000, and the advertising revenue estimate, 750,000. Back in November of 2016, the city of Sacramento tasked HDR with preparing an updated operations and maintenance cost estimate for the project. And they determined that ridership farebox revenue would be closer to $300,000. They also analyzed RT's advertising in terms of putting advertising on vehicles and such. They estimated that advertising revenue would be closer to $12,500. So it's nice to see that the estimates for the operating costs are now closer to reality at about 5.9 million, but there's a serious gap in funding for this, for the operations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barassa. Director Nsoli.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple questions. Maybe for Melissa. This goes, it's along some of the lines that Mr. Barassa just brought up, but on the page 4 of the governance risk assessment, discussion about if the community facilities district is deemed invalid, creating a $2 million a year operating deficit in proposed budget, who would be responsible? It talks about the element of responsibility, but Melissa, it says here that to comply with the grant requirements, the SAC-RT would have to cash flow the operation of the project? So where is the protection for RT? We've been challenged in recent years with our own cash flow issues, and I guess I'm curious about, maybe you can provide a little more backdrop for that, so I can understand what that risk.
Is the mic on here?
Yes.
So again, I think I was trying to highlight in the risk assessment that a lot of the issues here surround timing, because ultimately under the subrecipient agreement, we have no responsibility to fund the operation of the project. The expectation is that the JPA will pay, even if there's a funding shortfall on their side of what they expected as funding, they need to make up the difference. But at the same time, we have a commitment to the FTA and to the state to provide the expected revenue service at the expected headways on the service. So to comply with our obligations to the FTA, we may have to be providing service for which we are not immediately paid. Now, of course, we would be pursuing all legal remedies against the JPA under both the subrecipient agreement and the O&M agreement, but there may be a timing issue in that would necessitate RT paying for the service while we pursue those remedies. Now, obviously, this is a partnership arrangement, and we fully expect that the JPA will comply with its responsibilities under the subrecipient agreement. But ultimately, because we don't control the funding sources that go into the JPA, we are taking some risk.
So just to add to that a little bit, the greatest period of risk is in the first 5 years. The full fund, or the Small Starts Grant Agreement, requires us to maintain that level of service for those first 5 years of operation, and then the JPA has the ability to reduce that or increase them. They could increase them at any time, actually.
So remind me, Mark, what is it, 7-minute headways?
No, I think it's 20 minutes.
20-minute
starting off,
headways?
Yeah.
They have to be maintained during the time period in which it operates any day. So
yes.
In the event there wasn't sufficient funds from the partners, and I understood the backdrop here, we could be made whole, RT would, but we might have to float that money in order to maintain those headways?
So that's the risk that Melissa highlighted. I think that the other side of this is in the subrecipient agreement. That's a condition of the grant agreement that, so in all of these risks, really timing is the issue. So in a worst case scenario, yeah, we would be in the position of having to continue a higher level of service for a time than there may be funding to support. We do have legal remedy. We do have, the ability of perhaps an injunction to stop the reduction in funding, but it's all
that
awkward.
wouldn't be good. I mean, for all the partners.
Absolutely
If you embark on
right.
this for, the entity that's responsible for operating to be seeking an injunction against the partners, the city of West Sacramento, city of Sacramento, it doesn't make sense, we don't want to get in a position of that. But I mean, that's the only remedy you're saying? That's, if people didn't have the money and it wasn't forthcoming?
So there's a dispute resolution process in the agreements that, of course, we would exercise first, and hopefully we would resolve this in an amenable way before we got to the worst case scenario. So this whole scheme of governance works through partnership between the cities and RT. And I would hope that we would never get to this point. The cities, or the JPA, certainly understands that RT is going out on a limb in being the grant recipients, both for the federal and state funding, but the risks are more pronounced for the federal side. And they've done a lot in writing the agreements to protect us. But at the end of the day, they only go so far. They can only protect us to a certain point. And that's, to Melissa's comments, that's where we run into the timing issues of the risk.
So if I just get to understand on this question then, so the maximum exposure that would be anticipated any given year, which could be cumulative depending upon financial hardships that were involved here, would be $2 million a year, potentially, for a 5-year period? That would be assuming worst case?
So it would, no, I think the worst case would be that the JPA stopped funding any aspect of the operations for a time, and that's right now projected at around $5.9 million a year. That would be the absolute worst case. I think in reality we would be talking about trying to fund a lower level of service, so it'd be somewhere between that and fully funded.
Okay. Thanks for that background. The other question I wanted to ask about then, and just as it relates, maybe for some of my colleagues have been a part of the representatives have been discussing the governance. It seems to me, at least my take on this, it's a little bit watered down. Again, I have every bit of confidence in the council member that from RT that would sit there. But why is, I guess maybe I ask this of Steve or Jeff or whoever or Melinda and participate in this, why is it that RT wouldn't have a seat? If you had 2 from the city of Sacramento, 2 from the city of Sacramento, and if in fact we're going to have this level of involvement in the project, I guess I just need to understand why it is RT. Again, maybe it would be a supplement to either 1 or 4 of you that might be serving on there. I guess it just seems a little odd to me. If we have that level of engagement, why, when I look at other JPAs across the region, each one's different, but why you wouldn't have an RT representative solely?
I'm happy to respond to that.
Okay.
I have the somewhat unillustrious title of also being chair of the JPA. And I made that case for RT to be represented there. We weren't able to have a successful vote on that at the JPA. And I think it comes down to the balance between the cities. They already see Mr. Harris and I, who serve on the JPA, as representatives of regional transit, even though we have a dual capacity for the city. I think it's something that we should continue to press on. And indeed, the risk review may come back and say that. But at that point, we could not get consensus between the 2 cities, with the 4 JPA members split 2-2 on that question.
Okay.
So,
I just would say, Chair Hansen, to my city colleagues here on the RT board, that I, for one, certainly would be supportive of continuing to press that point, because it seems fair to me.
Would you like to serve on the JPA?
No, I'm not advocating that, but again, I've certainly would rise to the occasion if called upon. But but my suggestion is to be supportive of you, certainly recognizing that that's, at least in my view, is critical from the standpoint of engagement. And again, the colleagues from West Sacramento, they may look at it differently, as you've explained, but it seems to me that that was a logical approach, and I would be very supportive of you maintaining that position. So who is going to fill the 5th spot?
So there was a selection recently of David Taylor to fill that spot. I also will say that there's a lot of robust conversation right now, given the administration we have and their view on transit overall, about where the project goes. But I can make some of those comments when I speak. So
thanks. That's all I have.
So just to end on that point, the agreement does require that one of the city members also be an RT member. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Mark. Director Budge.
Could somebody address the comments about the HDR study and the discrepancy between their funding projections and the funding projections in here?
So a couple of comments. I think, first of all, our estimate of operating cost was confirmed by HDR, and they supported it. It's in the $5.9 million range. That is, gosh, over a year old now, so it's an aging estimate, so we'll have to revisit that. The elements that make up the funding sources that we've provided to FTA are there are elements of that are fairly firm. The city's assessment and the West Sacramento contribution are pretty good numbers. In the testimony, it was pointed out that the city's estimate is, of course, being challenged in a lawsuit, and we'll need to see how that comes out. But the dollar amounts are pretty firm. The estimates for advertising and fair revenue have some degree of question to them. I mean, RT is not achieved for our entire fleet the level of advertising revenue that we're seeing for streetcar. Well, that's not entirely true. We actually have, if you look at light rail as well, but we're maybe $900,000 a year on an annual basis, and this is
almost every streetcar. I mean, almost every one of the
train.
light rail cars has got something on it.
Yeah, that was $1 million guarantee for 2 years to put the dollar amount in perspective. So that's $500,000 a year for rail, and buses I'm thinking are around another $400,000 or so. So we're probably just under $1 million for our entire fleet, and this is assuming $750,000. It's possible. I'm not saying it's not, but I mean that's to put it in perspective. And then fair revenue, we'll see. So there's some softness in getting up to something that's close to. Oh, and then there's $1 million assumed from other competitive sources, CMAQ, and those are not unrealistic. They could go towards that project. That's also money that generally is available for the other transit systems to compete for other services too. It's not all money that would come to RT. But to Melissa's earlier comment, putting the funding plan together here is absolutely a responsibility of the cities. They need to come up with the operating funding to do this. That's not RT's responsibility. They need to fund this fully.
And we assume that their funding projections are part of the Fed's risk assessment.
They are, absolutely they are, as are their estimates of revenue sources to fund operations.
Director Budge, any further comments?
Nope, thank you.
Director Hume.
Thank you, Director Hanson. Let me begin by saying that ideologically I'm agnostic with respect to the streetcar. I think that...
We're going to name a stop after you.
Not till I'm in the ground, I'm sure, if you're smart. I got a little gas left in the tank, if you know what I mean.
I thought you were electric.
Ideologically, I'm agnostic to the streetcar. I can certainly appreciate some of the detractors' points with respect to the cost. And my main hope is that someday we don't regret not investing that same amount, $200 million plus dollars into emerging technology with respect to people movement. Rather than this. But then the flip side of that is there's a certain nostalgia attached to streetcars, and I'm willing to buy into the argument that there's an economic driver component of it as well, and sort of moving the Sacramento community to the next level. However, my issue with what's being put before us tonight is one strictly of governance. I've long maintained that my support as an RT representative can only go forward to the extent that RT is divorced from the financial responsibility of this project. If we have to be in bed as an operator, that's one thing given our experience in that arena, but there's some things in the risk assessment, and Ms. Sanchez, you did a wonderful job of sort of outlining, or excuse me, Ms. Noble, you did a wonderful job of outlining the risk, what has been resolved and what's still, quote unquote, left on the table. And one of the things that is called out during the construction phase and also in a couple of the operational phase, and Director Natoli touched upon this, is that certain of these risks, if they do come to pass, can only be resolved by litigation. And in the court of public perception, that's going to be awful if RT has to cut service or suspend service or somehow go into debt in order to bankroll this project until such time as we can sue the JPA and have it resolved via a legal action by a judge. So that concerns me. And there's several, 1, 2, 3, 4 places at least in the operations component of this where it specifically called out that SAC-RT may be required to cash flow operations. As we've heard, the operational budget of the project is optimistic. And so to, again, look at our constituency, our ridership, and say, I'm sorry, we have to cut XYZ because we have to fund this streetcar project until it's such time we can compel the JPA to cover those costs, concerns me. The other concern comes from sort of an accountability aspect in that with respect to the construction phase, we are accountable to FTA and as well as in the operational phase. We are accountable to FTA without the oversight here locally, as was pointed out by Director Nertoli, and I wholeheartedly support his position that there needs to be greater oversight from the RT board. And so, again, the overall project, I have no issue with. If that's the priority for the community of Sacramento, I'm certainly in favor of backing them. But from an RT board member, I cannot move forward with the governance structure as it exists today. The minimum I would say we need to push for is that both Sac City members be RT board members. And what I believe that would do is that would at least, although, you know, we sometimes have conflicting hats that we wear as to who we represent when we sit on these boards, at least that then puts those JPA members in the hot seat of having to sit in these meetings should we come to a situation where our ridership is feeling slighted by what we've had to pick up in order to keep the streetcar project moving. So as it exists today, I can support the mitigated negative deck, but I can't support the proposed government documents.
Any other board members wish to speak? Oh yeah, Director Chenier.
Thanks very much. So first, let me just say, Mr. Nertoli, Mr. Hume, I appreciate where you are on the project. I mean, I think that's understandable, but I want to go back to kind of why we're doing this and the investment that both cities are making in the project, which is significant. And I think that the sunken costs that both Sacramento and West Sacramento have in the project is also significant, and neither one of the cities wants to see this fail, nor would it be prepared to do that. I want to ask either our attorney, Mr. Lonigan, I mean, is there any reason that you would think that either city would back off the commitments that they're making in this governance agreement? And I know that you all spent a lot of time getting to a point where everybody could agree to this. I mean, actually, and I want to say, I'm sorry, I want to say anything big that we do, that either city does, that the county does, your city, carries risk. Absolutely. And we can identify a host of risks with anything that we've done, whether for us it was putting up the arena or anything else. Those things have manifested themselves in a lot of success for us. And I would see this as being this piece for, I won't speak for West Sac on this, but for us, this is a vital piece of the renaissance of downtown, and really our investment in that goes way beyond just moving people around in the streetcar. It's really a piece of a much broader picture that we're taking a look at. But let me ask the question: is there any reason why we would think that either city would back off the commitments that they're making?
So my earlier comment: this is a project that works through partnership. I do not see any. It works through partnership, and the consequences of not partnering are very bad. And you've mentioned them all. I mean, that's who wants to see. I have a great deal of sympathy for the RT board member that sits on the JPA that is torn between, you know, a lawsuit if there's a default. So, I mean, for those two reasons, no, I don't see any reason why the JPA would not honor their commitment to the project, that would not respect RT's risk as the grant recipient and our responsibility to do the subrecipient monitoring. I don't expect that at all.
Right. So I also want to point out that, and I know that things can change over time because this board changes over time, as do the councils for both of the cities, although it's really been pretty stable for quite a while now, that this is one of a number of projects that we're working on collaboratively, whether it was the Del Rio Trail, the 1985 agreements, I think some of the Electrify America pieces of the puzzle. If you're talking about getting up to 40 vehicles that are electric, all of these pieces only work in partnership. Mm-hmm. So if one of the cities, and I can speak certainly for Sac City, or Jeff and I can speak for the next 4 years at least, right? Let's hope that these pieces all of these pieces fit together. I don't look at streetcar in the absence of all of the other agreements that we're making and all of the other partnerships that we're doing with the city or with RT. So I want to give our general manager a chance to speak on this and see about his satisfaction with the agreement that's drawn up before us. But I'm very comfortable with where we are. There is risk and reward in everything we do. I think the reward on this is another step in the renaissance of the downtown area, connecting both cities across the river, which is an important piece of the puzzle. I think complementary to that will be these electric buses going all the way to Davis and to my district in Oak Park. I think it's going to be great, but these are different pieces of that puzzle as well. So if I can ask Henry if you want to talk about your satisfaction level on this.
Sure, if you don't mind, I would like to just briefly answer a couple questions some board members just asked. So first, Director Budge asked why the ads revenue estimate so high than the previous HDR's estimate. I had a couple talk with them. The answer was because a year and a half ago, the business community did not, step up to approve the facility, whatever the tax. Then now, business community they are stepping up, and some, business owners, feel they can, put the ads on the streetcar in the future. So that's why they are boosting the advertising revenue. Whether or not that will be the reality, but at least there's some reasons behind that. So I just wanted to add that. Secondly, we actually asked it. This has been at least since I came here 2 years, 5 months ago. I have been asking why we cannot have more seats on the JPA board. In different, opportunities, occasions. I was not quite satisfied with other answers, but one answer I have to recognize, which is the utility franchise right. If RT is a major partner in that JPA board, then the utility companies will not waive the franchise rights, which will cost more than $12 million on the project. So if for two cities right now are major partners, RT are not, then the utility companies, they will waive that franchise rights more easily. So that is one of the major reasons the other partners gave to us. Again, this actually make me feel, we probably need to recognize that. And other reasons, I'm not quite convinced. They're not quite settled. But Director Hansen and I talked about this. Should we pursue more states? And I do really agree with some of board members say, hey, we should pursue that down the road. I do want to advise board to ask for more representations down the road. Once this agreement is signed, once SSGA is signed, then at that time we say, hey, JPA can 2 City of Sacramento board members, also they must be RT board members. And actually I present the 2 different scenarios to JPA board and in front of Congresswoman. I said, hey, why don't you name the 5th board member as RT board member? That's first. Secondly, hey, why don't you guys, annex to RT? So this project will become RT project. But again, that franchise right issue stopped us for now. But I would like to pursue down the road, after SSGA signed, then to say RT should have more say down the road, and which that happened exactly in other part of the country like Sacramento, like Atlanta, the FTA eventually made the Atlanta streetcar and MARTA before they were separate. In a lot of major step, what we need to do, this is answering to Director Chenier's question, how, what concerns or what, we have why, the partners were not really, complying with the regulations, whatever FTAs, because that's the key. That's the real KKK issue. We're afraid partners may not, comply with FTA's requirements. If they comply with that, then there should be no concern at all. But hypothetically, there always some possibility. But number one, issue in front of us is RT needs to step up to make sure we will be a great grant recipient to ensure all our sub-recipients, in this case 2 cities, will comply. So we need to step up. To be honest, in last 3 FTA triennial audits, sub-recipient monitoring topic, we were under deficient in 3 audits in last 9 years. I have talked to staff, the staff management team talked together, and we talked to our partners. Hey, once this governance structures, this agreement signed, we're going to step up. We're going to make sure our sub-recipients will do whatever they need to do to make sure RT will not at risk. And the feedback from our partners have been very positive. So this concern is really largely because of RT to say if we can do a better job, if we can step up, and which we will do our best to step up. So that's the key, how RT will step up to make sure. But we need a board support in the future, because when we step up, we're going to say no, and different stuff to our partners. At that time, we need a board support. That's another key from the board. Staff needs to step up to do the job, and board needs to support us. If there are no, if we say no, then other side pushed back, then we really need a board to help us. So that's the, the critical, path forward. This is a great partnership project, and staff would like board to approve. But in the meantime, this will be continue, involving project. We're going to seek, more adjustment down the road. I think I speak too much.
Director Chenier, are you done?
Yeah, very quickly, 3 items. One is, as we go forward with this, hopefully after tonight, I'm happy to support. And Mr. Hanson, Mr. Harris have been doing all the legwork on this, but if I can be supportive to, push for more RT representation, whether it's the two of the city board members, RT members being also on the JPA, however we want to do that. My understanding on the FTA, 2 things. One is that they were a little bit surprised that we hadn't got the governance agreement out of the way, and we're saying we should do this so we can be eligible going forward for the small starts grant agreement. And also, I just want to note that we recently had a number of our business partners who went to DC to meet with the FTA and got great reviews back from the FTA. This is exactly, regardless of anything else with this administration, this is exactly what this administration is looking at, which is a true public-private partnership. And having the business community fly back there and represent us, I think, was a really, really important piece of the puzzle here. And so I'm going to let these guys make the motion because they've been doing all the work, but I'm very much in support of moving forward on this. I think it's an important project to the downtown core. It's important to both cities. It's important to RT, and it's important to the region as we try to really make our core vibrant. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Harris.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with Director Chenier. There is risk in every project we undertake, and this one has risk. There's no doubt about it. We're pretty deeply involved in at this point, and an awful lot of work has gone into this over 2 decades. And we're very close to a very big inflection point, which would be the award of the Small Starts Grant. We've done an awful lot of legwork to get to this point. We've moved pretty far towards being shovel-ready. An awful lot of effort has been expended. And I think it's prudent at this point to go along one step farther and see if we get the Small Starts Grant. Obviously, if we don't, the project will not survive. And but we're so close and so much energy has been expended, I think it would be not a good decision to abandon the project now, and certainly to achieve the Small Starts Grant award, they need to see that our governance structure is intact and in place. I tend to agree also. I pushed for another seat on the board for RT. I think in the future we can probably get there, and I think that we should. So I agree with my colleagues that we will continue to push for that moving forward, but at this particular juncture, I think it's a prudent vote to move the project forward.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, and I'll move both resolutions for accepting the MND and the governance structure.
Second, but it seemed like we might need to take 2 different votes so we can have a roll call on at least one of them.
So you're going to second his motion on each. So I hear there's a motion from Director Harris to support Resolution A and B.
Yeah.
And do we need a separate roll call, Cindy?
We don't unless you'd like to have one.
Unless, I think maybe just for the sake of the people here who have concerns about the governance agreements,
Yeah.
that would be okay. I'll just make some quick comments. I think everybody on the board has got the right intention here, trying to protect our agency. I think that this has been a long running and very complex project. I don't think we've ever seen as complicated a set of agreements between so many different partners on what otherwise would be a very straightforward project for us. I think it reflects the things that Director Chenier said, but I think it also reflects a changing world. Transit has faced a lot of headwinds, in the last few years, and particularly these type of projects, so I think the scrutiny is appropriate. I do think RT oversight is embedded in this. RT will have to approve contracts and gets to review expenditures. And to the point about revenue estimates, I think that's fair game. I think that we need to tighten all the nuts and bolts on this and make sure it's well done. I also think that down the road, we've started conversations, thanks to our general manager, about the potential to incorporate West Sacramento into regional transit. It's part of our enabling statute that they could join. And I think that's another way to approach this, because of the reasons that the general manager said related to utility relocation. Probably not prudent at the moment, because it would cost us $12 million more if it became an RT project. But that kind of feeds into this whole idea that the rail projects right now, because of tariffs and other foreign issues, have seen incredible cost increases, and our own construction markets here in California have seen incredible tightening. So until we see the construction costs, I think that it's prudent to move forward. It honors the commitment to Congresswoman Matsui that many of us made. She has shown us that she's able to bring in the federal share. But what FTA does, I think, is very much in question. And there are risks. And, you know, I think being wide-eyed about those is our responsibility, our fiduciary responsibility. And so even though I share some of those concerns, I think that we should approve these documents today, but I still think we should drive a very hard bargain when it comes to how these agreements get made and our representation. So Director Nsoli, Budge, Hume, I think those are very appropriate comments. And with that, without any other debate, I'll call the question. On Resolution A, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Chair,
Opposed?
Chairman. No, sorry, go ahead.
Opposed, abstain?
I'm going to abstain, since attending one meeting a year doesn't really make me an expert on this.
Well, that was just the CEQA document,
I know.
so fair enough. And then on Resolution B, why don't we do a roll call, Cindy, on Resolution B?
Resolution B, okay, let's get the results of A.
Okay.
We'll do that first. And motion
All right.
passes at 95 votes.
Great.
And on Resolution B, roll call, Director Budge,
Yes.
Director Hansen,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Aye.
Director Hume,
No.
Director Jennings,
Aye.
Director Slowey,
Abstain?
Director Morin,
Yes.
Director Natoli, Director Chenier,
Aye.
and Director Cerna,
Aye.
with Chair Kennedy being absent. And the motion passes at 91%.
All right. Last items are just for information.
They are, if either Director Hume, or if Director Hume has anything to add for item 14.
No, ma'am.
And you have a speaker on item 15,
Yep.
which is the Capital Corridor Joint Powers
Mike,
Authority.
quick public comment on the CCJPA.
So the meeting happened in Martinez. Apologies that Director Miller is not here to directly address the board, the public, and staff about the meeting. Couple of takeaways. One, Managing Director Katrowski mentioned when he made the cover sheet for the board packet, it was listed in error the location of the next meeting as the Oakland BART boardroom. The meeting on September 19th at 10 a.m. will be in the new City of Sacramento Council chambers. The November meeting will be in the BART boardroom in Oakland on November 14th. The other takeaway from the meeting, there's going to be a schedule change on the 13th of August. The San Joaquins are also going to be having some minor schedule adjustments along with the Capital Corridor schedule change that they're doing. The big change, though, on that schedule is that the San Francisco Transbay Temporary Terminal will be closing. The cutover date, last day of service at the terminal located at 200 Folsom Street is August 12th. The new Salesforce Transit Center will hold a grand opening on August 13th, and the location of that is 425 Mission Street. So just in closing, so for both JPA's next meetings are in Sacramento. The San Joaquin JPA is this Friday at 9 a.m. in the historic old Sacramento City Council chambers, which is adjacent to I Street. And then the Capital Corridor is, again, September 19th at 10 a.m. in the new City Council chambers, the one the City Council currently holds its meetings at off of H Street. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Any other comments from the board? Seeing none, I'll adjourn the meeting.
We're not going to close session. If I can make those announcements, please.
Okay.
With that, we have a closed session. Public employee performance evaluation pursuant to Government Code Section 54957, titled General Manager CEO. Closed session will be upstairs, and there will not be a report out.
I hate having closed sessions.